Good morning, everybody. It's Tommaso from English Corner, as usual, with you. I've been with you for the past 3 weeks on Wednesday mornings, and we are going to read an article together. We have read articles about sports, we have read an article about language, and also about music, now that I think about it. And I thought that today it would be nice to change a little bit and talk about something different. And that's why I remembered about a magazine that I used to obsess over as a child. And of course, I'm talking about National Geographic. I don't know about you, but I have this memory of being a child and having a collection of National Geographic magazines. And they didn't really age. They never really got old because they always had very beautiful pictures and very interesting articles that were always topical, we could say. So I remember there was the edition about the ancient Egyptians, and there was one that talked about Antarctica. Now, Antarctica is always a very fascinating continent to discuss because it's very unique. It's this big, big ice sheet where things that don't really happen anywhere else in the world take place. I went to the National Geographic website yesterday to find an interesting article that we could read together. And you would never guess, I found an article exactly about Antarctica, and especially about the yellow penguin. Now, why did I choose this article? Because the title really intrigued me. Yellow penguin spotted in Antarctica. Here's why it's so rare. Now, I don't know much about Antarctica, but I thought that yellow penguins were pretty common to see. Well, turns out they are not, and this article explains us why as well. So I'm gonna start reading the article from the title. Yellow penguin spotted in Antarctica. Here's why it's so rare. And the subtitle reads, "The king penguin was spotted on the island of South Georgia, where the species gathers in the tens of thousands." Now, South Georgia has nothing to do with the European country nor with the American state. It's a tiny island off the coast of Antarctica. There is a picture that shows a lot of different yellow penguins, and the description of the picture says a group of king penguins huddled together in a blizzard on the island of South Georgia. Now, a blizzard is a snowstorm. When it's snowing very intensely and there are very strong winds, we call that a blizzard. The article is written by Jason Bittel and it was published on February 23rd, 2021. So it's a fairly recent article, it's just from yesterday, fresh out the oven. Okay, I'm going to start reading the first paragraph. We're talking about yellow penguins in Antarctica. On an expedition to the South Arctic in 2019, Belgian photographer Yves Adams expected a familiar sight: king penguins, easily identified by the black and yellow feathers adorning their heads and necks, and the orange flash of color running the length of their beaks. Instead, Adams saw something electrifying: a vivid yellow penguin. On the shore known as Salisbury Plains on South Georgia Island, as many as 120,000 king penguins have been observed milling about in a veritable sea of black feathers. Now imagine the sight. You're a photographer, you go to this island and you see 120,000 king penguins. That is an image that has always fascinated me to think about, imagining all these funny looking birds huddling together, some falling down, some other moving in a pretty funny way. It's always fun to think about. So in 2019, a Belgian photographer went to the island of South Georgia, expected to find the king penguins that we can identify from the black and yellow feathers around their heads or necks and the orange flesh running the length of their beaks, but instead he found a vivid yellow penguin. So, in the middle of these 120,000 king penguins, something stands out for the photographer. It means that the photographer notices something particular. Let's continue reading. But the animal Adams saw stood out from the rest. A bird with an ivory white bill, a cream-colored body, and a mane of lemon-hued feathers. Adams was offloading equipment from the expedition ship when he saw the unique bird amid a group of other penguins. He dropped everything and grabbed his camera. Nice. So imagine also this you have to be very adventurous to go to these places. So he is offloading, which is the opposite of uploading, of course. He's offloading equipment from the expedition ship when he sees this unique bird in the middle of a group of other penguins. This animal with a cream-colored body and the mane of lemon-hued feathers. So a hue is a sort of shade of the color. And the feathers are almost lemon-colored. Can you picture this type of penguin? I had a little hard time yesterday, but then, of course, we're going to see a picture. Let's keep reading. So at this point, the photographer, the Belgian photographer, Yves Adams, sees the penguin, drops everything, and grabs the camera. And he says, "To our surprise, they swam towards us," Adams recounted in an email. "So for a few minutes, we were very lucky, and I was so happy I got these good photo conditions." So for a few minutes, these penguins start swimming towards the photographer, who is very happy that he had these good photo conditions to take the shots. Imagine that's something very important for a photographer. Maybe you have the animal in front of you, but the conditions are not good. The animal is going the other way, and you have to chase him. Well, in this case, it's swimming directly towards them. During the 2-month expedition, Adams took thousands of photos. It wasn't until recently that he finally went through each one and edited the special photos, which have since gone viral. In some cases, when an individual animal's coloring diverges sharply from the species' typical coloration, it's an example of albinism. In this case, penguin expert P.D. Bursma says that the proper term for the yellow-maned bird is leucism, a genetic mutation in which an animal is mostly white but can produce some pigment. So, in many animal species, when an individual's coloring is very different from the typical coloration of the species, we talk about albinism. But this penguin expert, that could be a cool job, being a penguin expert. Imagine you have it in your ID card. It says Tommaso Adami, penguin expert. That would be cool. P. de Bursma says that the proper term for the yellow-maned bird is leucism, a genetic mutation in which an animal is mostly white but can produce some pigment. I'll keep reading. How they lack pigment kind of differs between individuals, but in general, It looks like they've been dipped in bleach, says Bersma, a conservation biologist at the University of Washington and the National Geographic Explorer. So, what is bleach? Bleach is something that smells very heavily. We use it to clean floors. And if we put a black t shirt inside the bleach, it loses its color. You know what I'm talking about, right? So, in general, he says, in not very scientific terms, it looks like such penguins have been dipped, okay? Like in the morning, you dip a cookie in your coffee. These penguins have been dipped in bleach. So I'm gonna keep reading. And here we have an interesting map where you can see South America, that point of Antarctica that really goes north, and the South Georgia. You see, it's gotta be a very interesting island between the very bottom of South America and the very tip of Antarctica. The title of the next section is Bird of a Different Color. Daniel Thomas, an ornithologist and expert in penguin pigments at Massey University of New Zealand, also agrees that the bird is most likely leucistic and not albino, which occurs when there is a total lack of pigment. So albino is when there is no pigment, and leucistic is when there is some. There are two different melanin pigments, eumelanin and pheomelanin, Thomas says in an email. Eumelanin is responsible for black coloration and most shiny blues and greens, and pheomelanin is responsible for brown and chestnut colors. So we have two main melanin pigments. Looking closely at the yellow penguin photos, Thomas points to the dark border between the yellow and white feathers, as well as the beige feathers on the penguin's back, as evidence that the bird is still producing pheomelanin but no eumelanin, a common arrangement for leucistic birds, he says. In 38 years of studying penguins, Bersma figures she could count on two hands the number of leucistic animals she's seen. And though she's never personally seen a leucistic king penguin, she's not surprised. They are out there. There have been numerous reported observations of leucistic king, rockhopper, and macaroni penguins. In 2019, a king penguin with a brown genetic mutation, which turned its gray feathers tan, was spotted in South Georgia. So, Bersma is the researcher we have been talking about. She has been studying penguins for 38 years, and she can count on two hands the number of leucistic animals she's seen. And another interesting thing is the last paragraph I read. Look at these different types of penguin. King, rock hopper, which means that it hops from one rock to the next, and macaroni. I think macaroni penguin is by far the winner for the best name. What do you think? Okay, rare but not unique is the title of the next subsection. It's not possible to tell if the yellow penguin is a male or a female just by looking at it, Adams says. But this coloration can be a problem for male Magellanic penguins, a species Bersma studies, when it comes time to find a mate. So, if the male wants to mate, and so to reproduce, decoloration can become a problem. Let's hear why. If you're a female, you'll be fine, because there's about 3 males to every female, she says. But males that look different don't stand out much a chance for mating. So, The girls, in the end, are pretty lucky because they've got 3 contenders. But if the male penguins look strange, then they don't really have a chance to mate. As a result, the leucistic trait only has an opportunity to get passed on roughly half the time. So statistically, not very good. The king penguin population is increasing, and the International Union for Conservation of Nature lists them as of least concern. But generally, when uncommon colorations do get passed on, they can endanger the individuals and further increase their rarity. So, as funny as it is, if these genetical traits get passed on, that could be a problem for the species as a whole. When penguins have more pigment in their feathers than normal, a condition called melanism, it gives them a darker color overall. These darker animals may be more visible than other penguins in the water and have a harder time sneaking up on fish. Now you wonder, why does this genetical mutation that concerns color why could it be a problem? Well, the problem is this one. So imagine a penguin that is darker than other penguins. When they go hunting and looking for fish, if they are too colorful, too shiny, the fish are going to notice them and they're going to go away. So hunting becomes more difficult. And paler penguins? Well, we were talking right now about darker penguins. Let's take a look at the paler ones, the ones with less color. Paler penguins are more likely to be eaten by leopard seals or killer whales in the Antarctic, she says. So, darker penguins have a hard time hunting and looking for food, and the paler penguins, there are more chances that leopard seals or killer whales will eat them. Now, seals, you know, the animal that we're used to seeing at the circus with a ball on its nose, the leopard seal is not a very cute animal. It's a hunter, it's a carnivore, of course, and it's got very sharp teeth. And leopard seals love penguins. And killer whales, of course, we also know them as orca whales. So we talked about darker penguins, paler penguins. Let's go to the last paragraph. So you are not going to get a chance to see very many, Burnsma says, a fact that makes Adam's sighting all the more amazing. So in conclusion, there are not a lot of so-called yellow penguins. And this penguin expert says that the Belgian photographer was very lucky to take a picture of the animal. Now, the title of the article is Yellow Penguin Spotted in Antarctica. Here's why it's so rare. You can find it on the National Geographic website. We said at the beginning that it's an article that was published yesterday. So it's really fresh from the oven or fresh from the typewriter, if you want to say that. And I recommend it because there is also a little video section that you can watch, and it can show you this particular type of paler penguin, a type of the type of penguin that we've just read about. So in the National Geographic, there are a lot of interesting articles. They are not solely related to animals. There are articles about also current affairs, history, biology, and much, much more. I highly recommend it in case you want a light read that doesn't necessarily talk about politics, for example, or coronavirus or all that. If you want to escape, to travel places a little bit, I highly recommend this website. Also, there is a very good Instagram photographer. He's actually a National Geographic photographer that publishes his work on Instagram. His name is Paul Nickeln. Paul Nickeln. I believe the last name is Nick. Keln, and he works especially in cold places like Antarctica, the North Pole, and much more. And the pictures he publishes are absolutely amazing. So I highly recommend you check out his photographs. I wish you a good rest of the week. The sun is shining here in Milan, so hopefully that stays for the entire duration of the day. And I shall talk to you next week. Goodbye, everybody, and good luck. Maybe you will see a penguin before the end of the week. Who knows? Bye bye.